You are listening to Season 2 of The Diary of a Wannabe Writer, the short and often daily podcast in which I chronicle my life and attempt to be a writer by writing daily. Sometimes. Hello, today is Sunday the 22nd of June 2025 and you are listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer. And no exciting location today. I'm not at the Opera Bar and I'm not walking down towards Sydney Harbour Bridge. I'm in a hotel in Singapore, having basically spent the last 10 or 11 hours working. So when I spoke to you last, I had just signed off chapter 31, and I had done a bit of reading, and I did do a bit of chapter 32 reading when I went to the hotel, but I was very, very jet lagged. At the moment, there's a 9-hour time difference between London and Sydney. When the clocks change, it becomes 11 hours because they go one way and we go the other. So yeah, at some points of the year there's 11 hours difference between Sydney and London, but at the moment it's only 9. Anyway, so I had my lunch, I signed off chapter 31, I recorded the podcast from the Opera Bar, and then I walked back to my hotel and I did a bit of reading, planned to do some other stuff, but I was exceedingly tired by then. And I tried to stay awake and failed. Did I go out and get something to eat? No, I'd had something to eat at the Opera Bar. So I was just really, really tired and eventually fell asleep. And then I got up this morning at 7 a.m. Sydney time, which I think was probably technically still, are they ahead? Yeah, they're ahead. So it was probably still yesterday UK time, and I had some breakfast because they do us an excellent deal at the hotel for breakfast. So it's a nice buffet breakfast, and it costs less with the exchange rate the way it is now, less than a tenner, so it's really, really good. So I had my breakfast, went up to my room, read a little bit more, and then slept again for a few hours because we were not due to be picked up until 12:50, which we were. We then drove off to the airport, and I operated on the flight working from Sydney to Singapore. And weirdly, because I had slept quite well before pickup, I was really keen to do a bit more work on the book. And I probably felt that chapter 32 was where it needed to be, having spent quite a lot of time on it, reading it over, yesterday afternoon and this morning. So I didn't get time. So this was a shorter flight and not one where we can actually, I don't really get time to myself on this flight, and the time I did I basically was in a bunk for an hour and a bit, but yeah, so we got to the airport, arrived in Singapore and got the bus to our hotel, and I've literally just done, or I'm recording this as part of actually the live stream, and during that I have signed off chapter 32. So I'm now 2 chapters ahead of the goal I set myself for this month. That's fine. But it's a really significant spot in the narrative of the book because it's where I stopped writing. So the story has had 2 main writing phases. So I might have visited it a couple of times, but basically it was the last chapter I wrote before I moved from my old model, which was to write the whole book and then edit the whole book. It was after I basically picked the book up again at that point in August last year, it might have been July, that I moved on to my write edit model. So it was the last chapter in the first primary writing phase, and the chapter I'm going to go on to edit hopefully tomorrow, chapter 33, or at least start working on tomorrow, was written a couple of years later. So it will be interesting to see. I'm sure it won't be a problem because I have read through them before, but this is the first time I've read it having read the previous 32 chapters. So it'll be very interesting to see, stylistically if they're similar and if it works. As I said, I'm sure it will. because I had immersed myself in the first 32 chapters before I started writing chapter 33. Interestingly, the first draft of chapter 33 had loads of stuff with them on the bus driving up to Scotland, and I read it before starting writing the new material and just decided it was absolutely crap. And so I binned it. It's unusual for me to write a large chunk and then go, you know what, this is rubbish. It's not getting me anywhere. And I rewrote it from scratch. And I think most of the action takes place after they've arrived in the Cairngorms now. So, yeah. But that's it. So that's the chapter I will start looking at tomorrow. Chapter 33, the first one from after I switched to my write edit model. So it was the first chapter that I wrote, then edited. It also means I'm only 11 chapters away from signing off this draft of the book. And I've looked at my notes. I've done all the things I needed to do. So I needed to establish the names of all of the soldiers, all the final 6 soldiers that go up to the Cairngorms with them. I've done that. I needed to introduce Oliver Shaw as a character. I've done that. I mean, he's appeared in the chapter I've just written, but he gets mentioned a couple of times before that. So all the things I felt I needed to do, I've done. So I feel really good, and it's very, very likely that I will get, well, I definitely will get the chapter. I should never say definitely because something can happen, but it's very likely that I will get this signed off before the end of June. It's very likely I'll get this signed off in early June, to be honest. But that's great because then I can start working on the still life sequel, self-portrait. Anyway, that's me. I'm hoping to come back on the podcast tomorrow to say that I've signed off chapter 33, but I think it's more likely that I will do that the following day on the 24th. Anyway, thank you for listening. Take care, and I'll be back at the same time tomorrow. Bye-bye.
You have been listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer. For more information about what I'm writing, go to linktr.ee/Richard Writes, capital R, capital W, where you can find details of my website and social media. I may see you there.